Hi everyone. Thank you so much for joining and welcome to this session with Network Rail. So I'm here with Avir from Network Rail. He's going to be telling you about some of the internship opportunities available, and this session will be recorded. So if you have extra questions and things, there will be an opportunity for you to get in touch afterwards if you have more questions. And also you will have this recording to come back to. So if you need to take notes from any of the slides or anything, feel free to do that. And then questions we're going to do at the end. So if you do have them, just drop them in the chat. I will keep an eye on it for you. We probably won't do them throughout, but at the end, there will definitely be lots of time for you to ask questions. So if you have them, put them in the chat. And yeah, any technical issues, if you can't hear us, if you can't see us, if you can't see the slides, drop it in the chat and I'll keep an eye on that as well. But that is it from me. And now I will hand over to Avir to tell you all about the opportunities at Network Rail.
Hi, everyone. Thanks for joining today's webinar. Before we go any further, I'm just going to get up a presentation first. Great. Yeah, so as Eloise mentioned, my name is Amavir and I work for Network Rail as part of the early careers team, focusing on graduate and apprentice recruitment. Before we go any further, I thought I'd just give myself just a bit of info about myself. So I joined Network Rail myself sort of 8-9 years ago on a graduate scheme at the time, and had the opportunity to go around, go on different placements, different rotations, before then finally entering a permanent position, and then since then have been working through the company since then. Now, today's webinar, what I'm looking to do today is I'm going to give you a bit of information in terms of who are Network Rail, what do we do, a little bit about the industry as a whole. I'll then talk a little bit in terms of what our recruitment process is like and try and offer any hints and tips that I can to not only help you with applying for our year in industry or placement schemes, but also hopefully give you some tips for when you're applying for any others that you might also be for as well. And then finally, I was going to just walk you through some of the schemes that we've got available for this upcoming recruitment round. And then we've got a little bit of time for questions at the end. So if anyone's got anything specific they'd like to ask me, please feel free to drop a message in the chat for them. So who are Network Rail? Who are we? Contrary to popular belief, we don't drive the trains, but what we do is we operate, maintain and develop all the railway infrastructure that's related to basically getting the trains moving. So that might be the track, the tunnels. We also own the majority of the stations across the country, as well as all the different bits of signalling equipment, just to ensure that trains are able to move from point A to point B. So we're able to bring people to loved ones, take people to work, allow people to connect, and really just offer a vital artery to the UK economy. Our big slogan and mantra, if you like, is we put passengers first. So everything that we do is with a customer service mindset, in order to try and support the passenger first, making sure that any decisions we make are all with the intention of making sure those that use our rail network, as well as those that live around, have the best experience possible. We are growing, and this control period, so this 5 years we have set budgets. We've got a budget of around sort of just under 50 billion to do a lot of enhancements in terms of infrastructure, maintenance, renewals. So there's a lot of commitment and a lot of investment currently happening within the rail network. But as part of that, and what that means to yourselves, is that means we have a wide variety of vacancies available, whether that's engineering, our business schemes. We have a variety of graduate schemes, year in industry and summer placements, which I'll be touching on a little bit further. And we really benefit those that are coming through from university into our organisation, as you'll be the ones that are offering some of the latest theory, able to offer a sort of fresh perspective on things, as well as being able to give a lens and a vision of things that might not have been explored before. And whatever you decide to specialize in, whichever role you decide to go into in the future, the aim is to make sure we give you as much support, whether that be from a pastoral perspective with mentors and current graduates, but also to offer you the commitment to really push your development from a professional perspective as well. Yeah, so sort of as mentioned, why we are such an important artery of the UK economy is we are focusing on railway being one of the more sustainable methods of transport, and we're at the moment we're making a commitment. So by about 2020, in the next 5 years, to essentially be carbon neutral and have a carbon neutral footprint. Our property portfolio grows every year, so we own a lot of the stations, the arches. We rent those out. They bring in, people use those for shops, retail spaces, and other units. And the revenue, all of which is generated, goes directly back into the railway itself. We work with a large variety of different partners, different engineering companies, different project management companies, a variety of whole spectrum of people, from energy to asset management, to really make sure the railway industry is able to thrive, because we are so key. And a career in railway gives you a real chance to see how important something like working for Network Rail is, as well as offering you sort of a bit of kudos wherever you decide to go in the future, should you to leave. Now, one of the big changes that is happening in the railway industry, and it's coming soon, is soon Network Rail will be having a bit of a rename in the next 2-3 years, and it will be called Great British Railways. So not only is it just a name change, but we're also going to be merged with a couple of other rail operating companies at the moment. And the idea behind this is by having one single entity, which every supplier, contractor, as well as own internal staff work under, ensures there's a level of consistency and accountability for running the railway as a whole, and ensuring, again, that passengers have the best experience, the quickest experience, and the most cost-effective experience possible. So whether that be things like making sure you're able to catch a train, which then runs on time, to make sure you're able to catch a connecting bus, which then allows you to take a flight, for example, all the way through into simplifying tickets and standardizing that practice, so no more having to try and use a variety of different apps to try and find cheaper tickets, but making sure that's all in one single place. But also allows us to sort of manage and coordinate. So when we have big activities, so whether that's a big sporting event or whether, like we've seen obviously with Her Majesty passing not long ago, making sure we're able to quickly offer a coordinated attempt to support any big, large UK events that are happening. Now, we have a set of core values, and why I mentioned this on the presentation will come a little bit clearer sort of later on. And those core values are to always be safe. Safety is at the heart of everything that we do, and it's one of the key tenets at Network Rail. We want to make sure that everyone gets home safely every day, and whether that be the people out on the track who are working and maintaining, whether that be people who are actually using the trains, the railway infrastructure, ensuring they have safe destinations and travel opportunities, but also through to our residents who live by close to railway infrastructure, to tracks, etc. Safety is the key thing when it comes to working at Network Rail. We also have several other set of values. So caring about our people, making sure we work as a team. We encourage everyone to be empowered to act. So if anyone has any new innovative ideas or new fresh thinkings to solutions, we really are encouraged, and we really try and encourage you to act upon it, to raise it, and we really try and support that mechanism through. And then diversity and inclusion is one of our main tenets, to ensure that we're representative to the population of the people that we are supporting, and offering a safe place where people can bring their whole selves to work every day and be who they truly are. Now, before we go on to talk about the schemes themselves, I just wanted to give a bit of a run through on what the application process is, as well as just touching on a couple of hints and tips which I think have been helpful to candidates in the past. So for Network Rail, the first thing we have is a Match Me quiz. Now, this is optional, and it doesn't form part of the application process itself. But what it does do is it might give you an inkling in terms of whether you think you'd be a fit for us, or whether possibly a career at Network Rail might not be the right thing for you. So the Match Me quiz essentially just asks you a set of questions, and in response, all you have to do is answer with things that you'll be most likely to do versus what you'd be least likely to do. And the whole point behind this is it's almost like a bit of a litmus test. Do your values sort of intertwine with ours? Are you the type of person that we're looking for? And is, on the flip side of that, is Network Rail a company that's also right for yourself, or would you be better applying for another employer? So it's optional, but it just helps to give an idea and give yourself a sense of, okay, is this company right for me? Now, the online application, it's a relatively short process, and it's the first step to getting a career at Network Rail, essentially. All it involves is you registering some simple details, your name, where you're from, email address, that sort of thing, as well as the scheme that you're interested in. And it takes no more than 5 to 10 minutes top just to confirm who you are, what you'll be doing, and when you'll be graduating, that sort of thing. Then you'll move on to the actual selection process, if you like. The first stage is what we call online testing. So what will happen is you will receive a link to essentially fill out or complete a set of questions. Now, per scheme, these questions are a little bit different depending on what you've applied for. So, for example, an engineering scheme may have different tests to our finance scheme, because our finance scheme may be looking for someone who's more numerically focused, someone who's a bit more logical, someone who's used to working with numbers, versus, like, say, for example, our business scheme, where the questions might be more about your team working skills, how you can interact with people, how would you work in certain scenarios, working with different stakeholders. So there's online tests. They're all a little bit different in terms of what you'll be asked, but the idea is it's a little bit relevant to the scheme you'll be applying for and the type of skills that they're after. The next section is a video interview. And on this video interview, generally the type of questions that you'll be asked are typical questions that no doubt you've sort of got an inkling for yourselves, in terms of why Network Rail, why have you chosen the schemes, what sort of strengths and things can you bring to the company, and it's all about just sort of understanding your intentions and motivations for wanting to apply for and work for Network Rail. Now, in terms of hints and tips, my biggest suggestions are, before you apply, have a little bit of a read of the website. You don't need to go into too much detail, but have an understanding of what we do, who we are, and sort of what our values are, sort of the ones that I just mentioned previously, and sort of see if these sort of align to your own personal values, Is this the type of company that you want to be working for? And if you can sort of bring those into your answers in terms of your reasoning why you want to work for Network Rail, you'll be sure to do that will help to put you in good stead for the process. Now, should you be successful in the video interview, you'll then move on to our final step, which is the assessment center. Now, the assessment center, obviously, given the COVID war that we've just come from, some of them might be a mix of, and this will certainly be the same for different industries that you may be applying for and different employers. There'll be a mix of, it may be online or it might be in person. Now, typically, our assessment centers will involve a one-to-one interview. Now, with our interviews, we've changed to a model which is called strengths-based, and that's what we use. And it's a little bit different from previous interviews that you might have had in the past, which have sort of referenced, tell me about a time when you've done X, Y, Z, and then you talk about previous experiences you've had using a STAR framework. The idea behind the strengths-based interview is to understand your reasons why, but also to understand to understand your previous experiences and how they can help, but to also understand your motivations on wanting to work for Network Rail. These can be a little bit trickier to prepare for. So the biggest thing I sort of like to say in terms of advice is, first of all, if you take a similar approach in terms of having to think about the activities and things you've done in the past, understand where the transferable skills are. So you might, for example, be part of a society, or you might be part of a sports team on the weekend, but take the time to understand what skills you're developing, what skills you'll be utilizing, whether that's teamwork, leadership. If you're part of a society, you might need to work with different stakeholders. Is that involving a bit of stakeholder management? And start to think of how this can start to translate into the workplace. The other side of it is when you're answering the question, take your time, relax. If you want to take a minute before you begin to answer each question to really sort of process what you'd like to say, that's completely okay. And if you follow those sort of hints, then you can't go too far wrong in terms of the interview process itself. The only other final part I'd like to add is, again, if you are able to spend a little bit of time researching the company, that will put you in good stead in terms of being able to offer some depth to your answers that you give. Aside from the one-to-one interview, typically there'll be a set of activities. Now with NR, and this is quite similar with most other companies, we have a specific group exercise activity that we'll do where you'll be presented with a scenario. You'll have to work together with the colleagues that you're with, and then you typically usually have to present back to somebody or sort of show your results of the end of the activity. Now, my biggest hints and tips that I can give on the assessment center side of things is, whilst the activity you're doing is important, what the end result isn't necessarily the biggest thing that we're looking at. The biggest thing that we're looking at is, are you able to work together as a team? Are you able to build on each other's ideas? Do you dominate the conversation, or do you let others get involved? Or do you try and work with each other to support each other through the activities? They're the key things that we're looking for, is how do you work as a team in a team, and are you a team player? Because these skills are so important when you're working, when you enter the world of work and when you are on your graduate scheme. Being able to interact and work with each other and bring out the best in each other is so important and so crucial. So please don't think of this as like an apprenticeship style activity where you're competing against each other to try and come out as the best. What we really want to see is how you interact with each other. Can you support each other? Can you bring out the best in each other? Is a real key thing I'd really emphasize. The final section for Network Rail, and other employers may differ, is we will ask a scenario, and then we will ask you to present back recommendations based on what you think the outcome should be of said scenario. Again, personally, what I like to think of is, if you've done a bit of research, you understand core values of a company, this can really help. So, for example, as I mentioned earlier, Network Rail, we're really big on our safety, making sure safety is the heart of everything we do. Therefore, it may be sensible to offer recommendations which have a safety first mindset. Similarly, if you were to work for a company which was with more of a focus on sustainability, you may want to ensure the answers you give are with a sustainable lens first. So they're my top tips generally on the application process. The other one that I'd give, and it's more of a general one, is when you're applying for different companies. Me personally, what I did is I did a list A and a list B. So list A are the companies that I really want to work for, and a list B for companies that I wouldn't mind working for. If you're able to do a few applications, and again, I appreciate everyone's at university, everyone's studying, time can sometimes be limited. But if you do spend time doing a few warm-up applications with your list B, this will help your mind and also that mind-muscle connection get used to understanding what employers look for, what does an application process look for, what does an assessment center feel like, how do they run, what do you typically do? So then when you go and apply for your tier A set of companies, i.e. the companies that you really, really want to work for, it's less of a mystery of what's coming. You will already have an idea in terms of what an assessment center will look like, what the type of activities you may be asked. And whilst the specific topic and nature might be different, the similarities will put you in good stead and will give you an air of familiarity of what you'll be doing. So, moving on, I'm going to have a quick run through in terms of our year in industry placement schemes. I won't bore everybody with a load of PowerPoints. I'll keep it fairly quick. But if anyone would like to find out more information, please feel free to head to our website. And I've got a QR link a little bit further on, which will give you a bit more information. Now, generally, the way our year in industry schemes work is you'll have just under a year, and these are aimed at students who have a sandwich year as part of their university course. So those that have the option to work with the employer for sort of 10 to 12 months before heading back to university to finish their final year of study. Now, with most of our placements and year in industry schemes, if you do well on your year in industry scheme, we will offer you a non-conditional offer. So should you get the grades that you're predicted, as long as you meet our minimum requirement, which is a 2.2, we'll then offer you an immediate fast track to our graduate scheme to start our graduate program. The idea behind our year in industry schemes in general is to just really give you a flavour of what it's like to work for Network Rail, what it's like to work in the rail industry, and how big and large we are in terms of all the activities that we have going on. So we have three engineering streams. There are civil, electrical, and mechanical year in industry schemes. And each one of these schemes is designed to give you a understanding of what it's like to be an engineer at Network Rail. So you might work on assets, you might have a chance to work on our telecommunication assets or our signaling assets, so the traffic light system that keeps the trains running on the track. Or you might be looking at more the infrastructure, the renewals, so things such as our tunnels, the track itself, bridges. Or you might be looking at more sort of projects where we're doing new investments and upgrades. Our project management scheme is designed to give you an idea of what it's like to be a project manager at Network Rail. And what we'll do is we will give you exposure to the different elements and life cycles of our project management processes. So these are the big projects that we'll be running. Some of them might be more sort of infrastructure based, so where you see the big construction building work that we have going on, or the station redevelopment work, or it could be smaller projects which are like more some of our, say for example, our safety based initiatives to make sure people work into certain parameters, etc. The operations and general management here in industry, that scheme is based on giving you an idea of what it's like to work on the operational element of our railway. So whether that's understanding what it's like to work at stations, working with suppliers, working with our train operating companies, so like such as like London North East or Abellio or ScotRail. But the focus of the operations and general management scheme is really about understanding the day-to-day rail running of the railway, how it works, all the different nuances that involves, to really understand what it means to transport people from one side of the country to the other. The finance scheme, very self-explanatory. So this is everything numbers and monetary related. So that might be a case of having exposure in terms of our forecasting, whether that's a case of seeing how our accounts payable work. You might have the chance to shadow some of our management accountants and our finance business partners to see how we work with the business to ensure that we manage public money wisely and cost effectively. And finally, we also have our IT and business scheme. We have a whole host of different departments within our IT. So you could be working on anything from sort of cybersecurity, whether through to our IT asset upgrades, whether that's understanding and working, making sure information flows correctly, through to things from what's going on the railway to is the right information being posted up on the customer notice board, so people know when and where the trains will be heading, or if there's diversions or cancellations. So there's a wide spectrum of sort of the different elements of IT that you could experience. Now, there's a little bit of information on each one, but I'll sort of run past that, and I'll give a little bit of a précis of what our summer placements involve. Oh, actually, before we do move any further, the salary, the most important thing, it's 17,000, but that's prorated because you won't be working the whole 12 months. So it's prorated accordingly for the time that you're here. You do still get a whole host of variety of different benefits that any other Network Rail member of staff gets. So that's 5 voluntary days, so you can do things with your favorite charity. We give you 28 days annual leave. Of course, as mentioned, you get fast-tracked onto next year's graduate schemes, as well as discounts on a variety of different places, whether that's things like EE, B&Q, shopping, whatever. There's a whole host of different benefits for being part of Network Rail and also the wider rail industry. Right. Now, our summer placement schemes, they are slightly different, and they run. So whereas the year in industry schemes are focused at those that have a placement, a sandwich year as part of their university degree, we're conscious and we're aware that a lot of courses are not designed with this to have this, but we know a lot of students still want to have infrastructure. I mean, sort of want exposure to what it's like working for Network Rail, as well as the experience as well. So what we offer on our summer placement scheme is sort of 10 to 12 weeks. It's a mini placement. And again, we're recruiting across our engineering disciplines, project management, general management, finance, as well as network strategy, planning and analysis. And the idea behind this is to give you a short placement, to give you a taste of what it's like working for Network Rail. Again, while you're working on your sort of 10 to 12 weeks, the idea is we try and give you as much exposure as possible, so you can see how wide and how much variety exists on the railway. And again, with the idea of giving you sort of experience of what it's like to work for Network Rail. So when you do apply, you've already got some experience of what it's like, whether that's with us or another employer. Unlike the year in industry where you get fast track straight to a graduate scheme, should you be successful in the summer placement scheme, because the duration of that placement is a lot shorter, what we do is we'll give you a fast track straight to the assessment centre. By being fast tracked straight to the assessment centre, at that point, it's quite easy for you to bring in a lot of the examples of work that you've been doing when you was at NR as well as at university, which should help to give you a really rounded response back, during the interview process, but also through the activities that we do as part of the assessment centre. So you'll already know that environment, being safety conscious is really important to us, for example. And again, we run those across each different scheme, so engineering, summer finance, project management, general management, and then a similar sort of thing where the salary again is prorated along with the annual leave, but again, you are still, while you do work for Network Rail, you still have access to all the other benefits that we offer, whether that's, like I said, money off things, discounts, etc. And that, in a nutshell, is Network Rail, who we are, the application process that we have, as well as some of the schemes that we're offering for this year's intake. Now, we're not live for applications just yet, but we will be going live week commencing the 10th of October. So please keep that as a note in your diaries, because we'd love it for all of you to apply. If anyone would like to find out any further information, or would like to be the first to know when we do go live for applications, I'd just like to encourage everyone to, if you pop out your phone and scan the QR code, that will take you across to our Register Your Interest platform, where we will then keep you up to date with when we're going live, what vacancies we'll be going live for, but also a variety of different hints and tips, and give you a bit of context in terms of what it's like to work for Network Rail. That's everything from me. Does anybody have any questions at all?
All right, thank you so much. That was so helpful and really comprehensive, and a great insight into all of the different opportunities. And there are a lot of questions for you, so I'm going to try and pick some of them out. A few people are asking about, so I think it mentioned on some of the slides that you need to be in your penultimate year of university.
Yes.
Are there any opportunities for like people who are a little bit younger or older? What is that?
So currently not at the moment. When you're in that, when you've got one more year left, that's when we like to do it, because then purely because business can change and the environment can change in terms of what we offer and what Network Rail will offer, and because we want to offer that continuation of, okay, you've done a placement with us, finish your studies. 1 year still allows for some sort of continuities to still happen to ensure that we're able to offer you places on graduate schemes, etc.
That makes sense. All right, a few people asking about your career path. So we've got, what graduate scheme did you do? And also, what has made you stay at Network Rail? What is the best thing about working for them?
So I was on, so the schemes change a little bit, but because, and I've been working for Network Rail for 8 years now. So I started on what will be the equivalent of the operations and management scheme. I had the chance, it was a 2-year scheme. I had the chance to rotate around a variety of different functions. I had the chance to see the really good thing about when you are on the graduate scheme, as well as the other placement schemes as well, is because you're not a normal employee per se, as in you're not just fixed down to a job. You have a good 2 years to really experience and see how big the rail network is, what we do. Because it's crazy to say, and this sort of ties into the second part of the question, is you really don't understand how big and massive we are as an entity in terms of how much we do until you enter the company. Like, I know there's people who've been working here for like 40, 50 years and still haven't seen everything that Network Rail do. We are such a big body and we do so much. There is just a wide variety of just opportunity available. And that's sort of the reason that I've stuck around for so long is there is so much that happens. There is so many sideward steps. There are so many different function and areas that you can sort of visit. It's there's opportunity aplenty is the reason why. And then just the second part of that is generally there's a really caring nature here. Everyone supports each other. One thing that's always banded around at NR, and I hear it all the time, is people say railway family, because there is that real sense of like camaraderie and sticking together. Yeah, so that'll be the main reasons why I applied, and the reason I'm still here.
Love that. And someone asked, is there anything they can do to make their application stand out? Would you like them to have previous work experience? Because I think you mentioned about like showing the values that were on that slide. Definitely, if you go back to the recording and like take a note of all the values, that sounds like something they should bring out in applications. And is there anything else? Any other?
Definitely. I think the more you can just, not so much on the application, because the application hours generally are quite small. With other employers, sometimes they offer more chance where you can actually write more about who you are and what you're like, etc. For me, I think those that have clearly done a little bit of research into Network Rail, and it doesn't need to be reams and you don't need to work through strategic papers or anything like that, but those that have clearly done about an hour or two worth of Googling, understand what Network Rail are, and then have a real understanding of why they want to work there, along with those that understand and can show the different things you've been doing. Because often, obviously, for most people, this is going to be your first proper career job, entering the world of work per se. And we know not everyone's going to have a variety of work experience specifically, but if you can show just a more well-rounded version of yourself and things that you do extracurricularly, really stands out. And if you can show how that translates into the workplace in terms of transferable skills, you run to a winner.
That's really helpful. Okay, is it different? How hard is it to get onto the scheme? So people are asking, do you get lots of people applying in comparison to the number of positions that are available?
So we do get a large number of applications. Like I won't sugarcoat that whatsoever. But please don't let that put you off either. Often I know, especially in the early career space, like graduate recruitment, year in industry recruitment, like I can only sympathize with you after being on the other side of the fence. Like it can sometimes feel cutthroat and like, oh, there's so many people applying for so small spaces, but please don't let that put you off. We're in total, and please don't quote me on the numbers here, but off the top of my head, we're recruiting around in total for graduates, around sort of the 150 mark. For year in industry students, around the 60 mark, and then for summer placements, around the 40 mark. So we do have a large amount of vacancies available for this upcoming recruitment intake.
Good news. And if someone wanted to swap their specialism or swap the area that they're interested in between, for example, the year in industry and the graduate scheme, is that something that's offered, or do you pick a track and then you kind of follow that?
So it's the definite get the fast track on is for if you go from, like, say, for example, an IT to an IT graduate scheme. But that doesn't mean to say that hasn't happened in the past. And often, if you've done well on your year in industry, the person who's been managing you and speaking to, so your placement manager, will often just have the conversation with the area that you're looking to transition across to, and more often than not, we allow that to happen. So I couldn't give a guaranteed yes, but more often than not, we absolutely allow that to happen, because sometimes you change your mind, things might change, your fancy might change, and that's completely okay. But we do try and accommodate that for sure.
Someone asking about health and safety placements, would that come under, is that under the general management operations?
Yes, yeah. We did used to offer a scheme specific for that, but now it's under the operations.
Great. Do you have any mock application questions that you can practice before applying?
Oh, we don't. And again, our application's not too bad, but for the video interview, if you just plan for the standard, if you know why you want to work for Network Rail, you know who Network Rail are and what your reasons are for wanting to work for Network Rail, you probably can't go too far wrong. And then do some preparation around that. And then, yeah, like I sort of said, if you've got an idea of where the rail industry's heading and why that sort of appeals to you, yeah, that'll certainly help.
Yeah, and I think you also mentioned the quiz that they take. They could take.
Yes. Oh, yes, absolutely.
Like position your so you've got a few things you can prepare with. Will the application match you to the jobs that are most relevant to you? I think that was for the quiz thing. Like, would it suggest areas of interest, or?
I think you'll choose what you're looking for, and it will then align you accordingly. It's more so not the nuts and bolts of the scheme you're applying for. It's more a case of your values, what you prioritize, what you think is important. That's more where it's coming from, like you as a person, as opposed to can you solve X mechanical engineering conundrum or not.
There's quite a few questions about people with masters in engineering or more experienced engineers. My sense was that these were more placements for the university students, but are there other options? Could people look elsewhere within Network Rail for things like that?
And so if you're like completing your masters, or you finished, or like you're a mature student, or someone who finished university a little while ago and may have already gone into the world of work, absolutely no problem. You're more than welcome to apply for our graduate schemes, and that they'd probably be the best ones for you. We don't have any upper limits on who can apply for our grad programs. So if you've already been and gone through it, yeah, you're still more than welcome to apply for our graduate programs.
Great. Do you have any tips for the video interviews for people who get nervous doing video interviews?
The first things first is try not to look too much into the bottom right hand corner where you can see yourself, because I know I certainly did that. Aside from what I mentioned in terms of general tips, I think if you do a few, and refer back to where I said have a list A and a list B of companies that you really want to work for and companies you wouldn't mind working for, if you can knock out a few wouldn't mind working for video interviews, you'll start to get into the habit of what it's like to just stare at a screen while questions are being pinged at you, which is weird in itself. But then it just gives you an air of familiarity. So that's what I would say, is apply for a few, get used to it, and then when you want to tackle the ones that you really want to go for, it'll make the experience a bit easier. And also, usual tips apply. Do it where there's no one around, no one to disturb you. Make sure you've got a good internet connection. Mitigate all the things that could put you off. Like if you've got like a younger sibling who'll be knocking, banging on the door, maybe just wait till they go to bed. Do the classic, and this doesn't really apply for us in terms of being a little bit smart in terms of what you're wearing up top. That doesn't necessarily apply to us, but I know for some certain organizations it does. So if you're wearing basketball shorts and sliders below, that's fine, but maybe still wear a shirt on top.
Yeah, that's great tips. And then we've got some more technical questions. Will they be emailed about the applications? I think if you register your interest, you'll probably get that.
If you register your interest, then yeah, absolutely.
What is meant by season tickets and the benefits? I have a feeling that's rail rather than sports. Season tickets.
Yeah, wishful thinking. Otherwise, I'd have stole them all. Yeah, that's for travel. Yeah, for train.
Cool. And then one of the last ones we have, can you do anything pre-university? So is there like any insight days? Like, could you do an open day? Is there anything going on for pre-uni?
Oh, so we do occasionally host bits either pre-uni or open days at NR, but in all honesty, they're more ad hoc. So I couldn't definitely give a date. All I would say is if you do RYR register your interest, you'll get up-to-date comms, and when every time we set up an event or we do a webinar or we bring current grads along so people can answer questions, that sort of thing.
That's great. Okay, so I think most of the other ones are quite technical questions. So if you do have a more technical question, it's probably either answered on the website or if you register for details, you'll get details about the application. If you have like a very specific question about your circumstances, probably best to just get in touch separately, if that makes sense. And then if you have any final questions, just drop them in the chat right now so I make sure I answer them. And in the meantime, do you have any final words of advice or words of wisdom that you want to pass on?
Just best of luck. I appreciate this time of year can be so tricky for so many people in terms of you're balancing study, work, social, and then having to do this on top can sometimes seem like a lot. What I would say is just chip away at them slowly and steadily. Apply for a few, just to hedge your bets. And yeah, that's it. And then spend the time to do a little bit of Googling. Like an hour or two will go a long way in terms of being able to see. Because I also do the interviews at the assessment center, and you can quite clearly tell when someone's bothered to do a little bit of research, or someone really knows, right, okay, I really want to work for NR because of X, Y, Z. So if you can spend a little bit of time, like literally a couple of hours, just understanding what the company do, who they are, and why you kind of want to work for them, that really shines through. That really does shine through.
Yeah, it's really good advice. Okay, final thing. For people who are on their phone, is there a link to the QR code or the?
There's no reason I can't drop it in the chat. If I pop it in the chat,
yeah, that'd be great. I think
no problem. Or if for anyone else that can't access it or loses the chat for whatever reason, if you just go onto the Network Rail website, go on any of the schemes that take your fancy, at the bottom of the page there's a register your interest link there too.
Okay, great. Yeah, no, I think it'd be great if it could go in the chat. Lewis is just asking, do you go through the applications yourself? Lewis, do you mean, what do you mean? Is it a screening tool? Yeah, I think the first part of the application is more like a screening tool, and then you do like a more personal.
Yeah, then we've got people on the other end who review like the video interview and score it appropriately. Yeah, because the application form's just basic info about yourself, and that's automatically plugs in just to make sure you're eligible, for example.
Okay, great. Lewis, if that didn't answer your question, just drop in the chat again. Cool. Did the link go into the?
I'm literally just popping the link into the chat now. Yeah, if you can.
Cool. Perfect. And then, guys, if you just grab that link now if you need it, because I think this chat will disappear when we close the session. What would make you not eligible? I guess age requirements, or for the university specific ones, or.
Yeah, exactly that. So if you're not, so for certain schemes like our engineering schemes, for example, you have to be following a pathway for certain accredited institutions, because the idea is basically when you're then on the grad scheme, we support you to chartership. So like, for example, you're now you're testing me here. So say, for example, mechanical engineering, if you was to apply for that, we just want to ensure that the course you're studying for is supported by the IMechE, or the same with chartered engineering, the ICE, and then electrical engineering, the IET. That's probably the bigger thing, just to be aware. But chances are, again, you can double check this, but chances are if you're doing a mechanical engineering course, you're probably fine for mechanical.
And yeah, if you do have really specific questions about a particular circumstance, you can always, I guess, get in touch with someone of the team.
Yeah, exactly. And all that sort of stuff in terms of the specific entry requirements, they'll be on the webpage as well. They'll be on the webpage.
Great. Did you record this session? Yes, this is all recorded and you can watch it back from the beginning and take notes and grab the QR code whenever you need to. And other than that, I think that is all the general questions from the chat. Thank you so much for coming. Thank you so much for presenting. It was really interesting, like so interesting to know about all of the opportunities, and really exciting for people who want to get into this industry. And for everyone watching, there are lots more sessions as part of National Intern Week 2022. So make sure you sign up to some of the others and hopefully see you on some of those. And other than that, thank you again and see you soon.
Cheers. Thanks everyone for your time. Really appreciate it. Best of luck with your future careers.
Thank you.